Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, I think we can say just quite simply, ASU football's fun again.
That was something special there. Last Friday night at home against Utah, a game that Brad and I both predicted not to go ASU's way.
Happy to be wrong.
There you go. I'm very grateful for it. You can call it a statement victory. I think it is every bit of that, and the resilience that this team has showed all year continued against a very difficult opponent, one that has, of course, was predicted to win the Big 12 Conference, perhaps go to the college football playoff, but all that really didn't mean much last Friday night in Mountain America Stadium. You saw the toughness of Arizona State University, and my goodness, Cam Scadaboo, what in the world can you say at this particular point? You feel like you've thrown out all the superlatives and all the compliments that you can, and he just keeps doing more and more and more things. This might need to be a topic in and of itself, but the carrying the team on his back factor, I don't know if we've seen that in any capacity at Arizona State since a guy wearing number 16 took ASU to the Rose Bowl in the mid-1990s there. It's unbelievable. And so what it all adds up to is ASU is 5-1 at the midway point of the regular season, and that's something to celebrate. But as always, it's almost time to turn the page and look ahead to the next game because you got to focus on the next opponent coming up, and ASU's got a tough one, a very early game by Sun Devil standards at Cincinnati.
Yeah, get your breakfast burritos from Burrito Express ready to go. Yeah, 9 a.m. Arizona time kickoff. It's going to be an interesting one, especially coming off ASU's first-ranked win from a technical perspective since 2019. We'll maybe dig in that in a second. But, yeah, it's going to be a big game for the Devils to keep that momentum going because what a crazy world, because we could be looking at a situation before Halloween, ASU's locked up bowl eligibility.
Yeah, I mean, the ASU is already at the win total that I know. I believe we both went 5-7. And quite frankly, when I made that prediction, I was thinking a couple of things might have to go kind of right for ASU to get to that 5-win mark. Obviously, they're there right now. Now then, every game still needs to be played. Trying to bring things back down to earth a little bit. I always go back to that 2016 season for ASU under Todd Graham. Started 5-1, finished 5-7. I'm not putting that evil on us, Ricky Bobby. You know what I'm saying right now. But I'm just saying we've seen a lot happen. So you gotta go by the mantra of the late great Bruce Snyder. Take them one at a time.
All right, so we'll be diving into some news here in just a second, but we've got a loaded show. We're going to be talking to Bearcat insider J.T. Smith a little bit later on, as well as a couple of key Sun Devils who are big factors in getting the last couple wins, and linebacker Jordan Crook and offensive lineman Kyle Scott.
Now, if you are jonesing for a new vehicle like you are jonesing for yet another Sun Devil football victory, your first call, your only call, needs to be to Jones Auto Group. Jones has been servicing the state of Arizona and the Sun Devil community for more than 50 years with multiple locations across the state, and it is a fact. Jones Auto Group was the original provider of vehicles to Sun Devil student-athletes for NIL purposes, and it is your support that enables them to continue to do that year after year. In addition to their unwavering support of Sun Devil athletics, Jones Auto Group offers unique tax advantages due to their dealership locations that can potentially save you some big-time money. Doesn't get much better than that when shopping for a new vehicle. Working with a fellow Sun Devil who will treat you like family and can potentially set you up for some unique savings, you got to take that all day. So here's how you do it. You contact Parker Jones, not just the owner and GM, but a third-generation Arizona State alum, just like you, a passionate, die-hard Sun Devil fan. Here's his cell number. That's right, it's his cell. He wants to hear from you. 602-881-8998. Again, 602-881-8998. You can browse their inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles at jonesautocenters.com. Jones Auto Group, Arizona's best since 1970.
All right, let's start off with some awards. Now, of course, beating the number 16 team in the country, that's a full team effort, but a couple of Sun Devils went above and beyond, and as you said, Joe, it's getting hard to even talk about Cam Scadaboo right now, just because of we're running out of superlatives, and he, again, put up 158 yards, 2 huge second-half touchdowns, and so, of course, it was an easy decision. Third time, I believe, in 6 weeks that he's been named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. And he was also named the Doak Walker Award, of course, given to the nation's premier running back each year. he was named their player of the week as well.
It's really unreal what he's doing. Hard to put in the words, as you said, because it just keeps happening week after week, and you just figure that, man, there's so much film on him, and he's becoming kind of a bit of a known commodity. You kind of see some of these accounts that are sharing his stuff on social media, and he's kind of like this little underground hero because, you look at him and you hear his story, and you just don't necessarily think that maybe that's going to be a guy who's in the nation's top 10 in rushing, a guy who's bullying a Utah defense that is typically known for doing just that to running backs. So it is incredible. And what I said in the opening, as far as a guy that you can just trust to put the team on his shoulders, obviously ASU has had a tremendous amount of talented players on offense and defense, but just someone that you figure when the game is at its toughest, when a play needs to be made, what Scadaboo is doing is just a different level than honestly anybody that I've seen for ASU since Jake Plummer. The fact that he can make something happen when others cannot. He has this extra gear, this extra setting within himself that you can flip a switch. Like, all right, if I get a first down here, the game's over. Well, I'm gonna get a first down. Team needs me to get a 40, 50-yard touchdown, break a bunch of tackles doing it. I'm gonna do that. I need to make a diving reception to save a drive. I'm going to do that. So it is just tremendously special stuff. ASU is obviously very, very fortunate to have him on the roster. And the way that the statistics are projecting out, I mean, he could very well put into jeopardy Eno Benjamin's single-season rushing record, or at least come within, a cry of that. So just a tremendously special season. And I certainly hope that Sun Devil fans understand what they're watching here, how unique and how rare it is, not just from a statistical perspective, even though it certainly is that, just everything about what Scat's doing in the player that he is, the student athlete that he is. This is really rare stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's just the clutch factor that he's in the fourth quarter. He's coming up big. I mean, of course, the guy like Ashton Genty is, unsurprisingly, has the most rushing yards in the fourth quarter of any player in the country. Number 2, Cam Scadaboo. Who's moved the chains more often, and we've seen like Texas State, and those moments where ASU needs a first down to continue the drive, chew up those clock in that all crucial 4-minute drill. Cam Scadaboo leads the nation in the fourth quarter first down runs. Even though in the big strike, 8 runs of over 10 yards in the fourth quarter. Nobody in the nation has more than that. So it's not just all game long that we're seeing Scat do Scat things. It's in the times and the moments that matter most. Another guy who stepped up in a big-time way, Caleb McCullough, a door-to-door Sun Devil, as Doug Tamaro likes to call him. He's seen a lot during his time at Arizona State. Of course, coming in a few years ago during the Herm era, silently, just kind of in the behind the scenes, putting in the work over the years, each year carving out more of a role on defense. And when Keyshawn Elliott was sitting out that first half because of that targeting penalty from last week, he got his moment, and all Caleb McCullough did was make plays. 2 huge interceptions, 12 tackles, making some plays in the backfield as well. So not only was he the easy choice for the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, also the Bronco Nagurski Award, their National Player of the Week.
It was unreal, and it's great to see. And these are the stories that you love to see be told out in the open. Listening to the post game show on the radio, the interview with him, or more specifically, how Kenny Dillingham spoke about McCullough. Man, it sent me back to listening to Todd Graham talk after the Jail Mary and talking about Mike Bercovici. If he could have transferred, he could have done what everybody else is doing, and that was at a very different time 10 years ago. He would have missed the greatest night of his life. I mean, that's a post-game interview that stuck with me ever since then, and it's really something that highlights how, yes, transferring can be the best option for a lot of people, but it's not always that case. Little pop quiz, Brad. Do you remember last time Caleb McCullough had an interception for ASU prior to Friday's game?
I do know. It's 70-7.
That was it. His true freshman season. He had one in the couple games that he played. I looked it up to confirm. I remember that being the last memorable one. There could have been
Schaefer had one too. We had a couple of freshman linebackers that year.
Yeah, that was just a game where everything
everybody
went right
had an interception
for
or touchdown.
Everybody. Yeah, exactly. So. My goodness. And it wasn't just the interceptions. We had, 12 tackles, some of which, stalled or stopped drives for Utah. Just somebody that came in, with a game plan, ready to execute. And as you mentioned, ASU needed that. And that was why that first half especially was so critical for the Sun Devil defense, because you had those 2 starters, arguably ASU's 2 best defensive players, Keyshawn Elliott and Clayton Smith, out for that first half because of those targeting calls from the Kansas game. So it was huge for Caleb McCullough to step up when he did for a number of different reasons, and it was just kind of the perfect ending to the story for he to be the guy that caught that interception at the end to seal things.
Yeah, he said after the game that he's been dreaming of moments like this since he was a kid. So to see those moments, those guys put in the work and staying true, and on the Speak of the Devil's feed, I had a conversation with him back, I believe, in August, and he talked about there were some times where he thought that maybe exploring options elsewhere, but ultimately he was raised to finish what you start, and you saw that come to fruition in a huge way in a night that he'll certainly never forget. So good to see Caleb really coming to the forefront there, and even that linebacker depth year over year. Man, what a transformation, as we've talked about. So of course, at 5-1 now, ASU also, I guess we should say, they've now hit their Vegas over. And so, as Kenny said in the post-game press conference, anybody who's won money betting the over for the Devils, kind of implored them to reinvest back in the Sun Angel Collective. One of the other elements there is that ASU was a few players, as we were walking off the field in the sea of people, a few players I did over here saying, we're going to be ranked. Unfortunately, Joe, not quite there yet. Number 28 in the AP poll, basically the third most points, so far this week.
Depends on who you ask as far as whether that's unfortunate or not, because bless their hearts, love them to death. The fans of Sun Devil Athletics want to win every game but never want to be ranked. I don't know how that works out, but if you find a way to make that happen, more power to you. It is one of the quirkier things. I mean, I get it to an extent, but a great way not to be ranked is to lose games. Sorry, they're winning. But that didn't shock me too terribly much, because if you step away from it, you take the emotion out of the circumstance. ASU, as we've talked about, the teams that they had beaten prior to Utah, some good ones in there, but nothing that really jumps off the page. I understand that ASU took care of business as they needed to, but that kind of is what it is. And then Utah, if people wanted to be critical, or if they were looking for a reason maybe not to rank ASU or to keep them on the outside looking in, then you can make the argument of, well, Utah was playing with the Cam Rising, as we'll talk about here in a moment, that was maybe like a single-digit % healthy as it appeared on the field. So there could be arguments on that. But 6 games in, that's just more of a little, accolade to just be happy about there in the moment, because you could be ranked and then lose a game and be right out of there. So great to be on the doorstep, great to be in the conversation, and if ASU truly is deserving of a national ranking, they'll go ahead and earn that this week and beyond.
Just think back to August, and right now at the halfway point of the season, ASU fans are upset that they're not ranked. So, I mean, just a little perspective based on the expectations coming in. One last quick note, defensive tackle Tristan Monday has left the team, taking advantage. Actually, he's already used his red shirt, but he's left the team and will be entering the transfer portal. He's a guy, though, that has been buried pretty deep down in terms of the interior defensive line depth.
Yeah, he was one of those additions from the transfer portal in Kenny Dillingham's, first class of recruits, if you want to, lump that in with that. And obviously a lot of those were local players, ones that maybe didn't get too much run at a previous school and looking for a new opportunity at ASU. As you mentioned, someone that ASU went out and got a lot of defensive linemen, in the last year or so, and many of them are seeing the field now. And so if he's not having a chance to see the field here, it's going to be in his best interest to transfer elsewhere. So it's one of those deals that's just, it's a clean separation. It doesn't really affect the depth as it is right now, and it gives somebody a chance just to kind of restart elsewhere. Yeah,
so Joe, I think it might almost be time for us to dive into ASU's big win.
Now, before we check into that memorable victory over Utah, you can get information about that game and every other to come on devilsdigest.com. You pair that up with what we do, what Hode and Company do. That's a great weekly plan to know everything you need to know about the Sun Devils. Obviously, being a subscriber to devilsdigest.com not only gets you that inside information on the Sun Devils, gets you premium access across the rivals.com network as well, which of course is top notch. So if you want to learn about other teams, if you might be a fan of other teams, or just want to know what's going on across the nation in recruiting for football or basketball, all you need is there at your fingertips at rivals.com, and of course with devilsdigest.com. So go in, become a subscriber. A lot of great information, practice and game coverage, anything newsworthy about Sun Devil Athletics can be found there, and some great discussions as well. Once again, that website, as you know by now, if you've been listening to us for any period of time, you'll know this. and hopefully you're a subscriber already. If not, there's time at devilsdigest.com.
All right, ASU 27, number 16 Utah 19. First ranked win for head coach Kenny Dillingham. First win over Utah since 2018. And depending on how much stock you put into the NCAA and their record book, the first win over a ranked team for the Devils since either 2022 or Oregon in 2019.
Yeah, so how that breaks down is obviously when ASU beat Washington in that memorable game, the Trenton Bourget, coming out party there in 2022. That game is forfeited, vacated through NCAA stuff. And even prior to that, when ASU went on the road in 2021 and beat UCLA, that was a ranked Bruin team. That one is also vacated. So again, if you go with the things that happened on the field or the technicalities in the rule book, it's either that October of 2022 or again, you got to go back nearly 5 full years to get to that point. Any way you slice it, it's a big victory, especially over a Utah team that had taken 4 straight against ASU and most recently beat the Sun Devils 55-3. So that's one that, again, very, very memorable. And I noticed scrolling social media on Friday, doesn't look like the Utes are too popular among their new Big 12 brethren because there are a lot of folks that were pretty happy with the Sun Devils. I think a lot of us have started to kind of, get a community going with Big 12 accounts from, the Texas Techs and the Oklahoma States and the Iowa States, ones that say, there's no bad blood here, at least not yet. They seem pretty happy with ASU. I got some pretty colorful responses when I brought that up on Twitter.
Yeah, so Utes are fitting right in the Big 12 as they did in the Pac-12. It was interesting to see just overall the reaction, and of course I saw some folks saying, beating just number 16 that doesn't warrant a field storm. I agree with Kenny Dillingham. This is college football. It's fun. Especially for a fan base that's been pent up for 3 years, basically, to get a win like this on national television when you had the nation's attention. Most of the Arizona high school football teams were on a bye. You're on ESPN. You pull off the big win, storm the field, have some fun, and that's exactly what happened at the forefront, at the center of these celebrations. Cam Scadaboo, I tweeted out, mayor of Tempe. I don't know, he could run for governor at this point. He's about the most popular dude in town. You put up 158 yards, 2 scores. That 50-yard touchdown run, Joe. And Nick Borgia, credit to him. If you have not seen the video that Nick Borgia captured of the run, absolute best spot down in the field. Check it out on social media. Sensational, where he bursts through the line, gets hit, keeps his balance, pushes himself up off the ground.
I didn't notice the stiff arm in real time. That one didn't catch me as much on the spot. That one was very well highlighted in that video, which to echo that was outstanding. It was, and so then after he is fallen, catches himself with his hand, pushes himself up, cuts left, stiff arms another defender, runs into the end zone. But that wasn't all. Of course, he saved the best for last on 47-yard touchdown to seal it. Earlier at that 20-yard catch on 3rd down, over the shoulder, kind of Willie Mays style, to keep the drive. I mean, everything, well, I should say, almost everything Cam did on Friday night worked. The 4th and 1 from the ASU 29, Marcus Arroyo, as was revealed by Cam, wanted to punt, but Scadaboo made the persuasive argument to go for it. I actually liked the decision to go for it, Joe. I did not like the play call because if you look back, I mean, Utah, and there was a wildcat formation. They knew exactly what was coming. That play had no chance. Yeah, I agree. That was such a really weird sequence because that came after why in the world Utah didn't kick a field goal and they went for it on 4th down.
With the kicker who also earned Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week this week.
Yeah, and then gives ASU the ball back. Now, okay, this feeds into a point I was just going to make. Did ASU lose a yard on that, or was it no gain?
Gain.
Scat is credited with 1 lost yard, which I was going to say is unbelievable. Doing what as predictable as it is for him to touch the ball, he had 1 loss on a loss of 1 yard on the night, 22 carries, and the reason that kind of sticks in my craw a little bit, just from like a numbers perspective, is if he wouldn't have lost that 1 yard, if he would have got one, he had 199. Like all-purpose yards between rushing and receiving. So if he doesn't lose that, you get an even 200. I'm a guy that likes a real even, nice number. But yeah, that play call was interesting. I think that again, I don't hate that they went for it. just didn't think that you had to run that particular play call. And then, Utah gets the ball back. And I think that was the possession where they scored a touchdown, but it was brought back.
Yeah.
So that
for the OPI pick play, and then they had to settle for a field goal.
So that 3 possession between the 2 of Utah and the 1 for ASU was just such a weird deal that seemed like it was swinging back and forth in either team's favor, and then ultimately the net result benefited ASU because the Sun Devils still had the lead after that weird 3 possession stretch.
Yeah, so of course, the one main blemish is Scat says I'm going to get this first down. He ultimately didn't, but ultimately at the end of the day, put the punctuation on it because later on with the catch and then the 47-yard touchdown run capped the victory. Sam Levitt, the numbers were pretty pedestrian. 11 of 18, 154 yards, touchdown, and interception, 22 yards rushing. But man, just another great showing, some clutch moments, and also perhaps more than anything, great toughness, leaving the game, taking a really hard shot. That opened the door for Jeff Sims, who obviously has some great physical talent, had a nice touchdown run there, but Levitt was able to come back and cap the win. Overall, a good receiving day for Jordan Tyson with 5 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. But Joe, the other receivers still not a factor altogether. Now, granted, Scadaboo is keeping up, maybe taking a lot of the oxygen in that realm, but just one other catch by a wide receiver on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give some credit to Xavier Guillory, who's been getting some deep passes or relatively deep passes each of the last couple games. But it's like you get your one and that's it. It's kind of what it's been. Melquan Stovall, I would say, is a name near the top of the list of kind of puzzling players. Someone that really had a lot of buzz in the preseason and obviously has a wealth of experience on the field at the college level. Jake Smith is someone that there were some bright spots early in the season opener. It looked like they were going to use him quite a bit, and now it's just been almost more special teams and running the ball. So, I mean, you could go through a list of a few guys, the Troy O'Meary's, things like that, a variety of different things going on there. So if it works, it works. You seriously would obviously like to, I mean, you're kind of tempted because you kind of want to lighten the load overall for Scadaboo, but man, if it works so well, it's tough not to. It's like you're playing a video game on like a hard setting. It's like, all right, like I can't be cute. I got to go with what works so I can win the game type of deal. But yeah, the receivers and you could kind of throw the tight ends in there as well. Shimon Mater had 1 catch for 8 yards. I think he's been generally as advertised. He's been solid, but the others around there, that's been a mystery as far as just the passing and receiving numbers for ASU's receivers and tight ends. But as you mentioned, Sam Levitt was the numbers don't jump off the page. The interception was not great. I couldn't tell. I don't know if that got tipped. Usually balls don't land right in the breadbasket of defensive linemen. Ironically, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like that one Will Sutton had to close out a win over Utah, ironically, in 2013 on the road. So yeah, he just didn't have too many things that hurt you. He had some semi-deep balls, just 20-plus yards that looked pretty good. So, some incremental, aspects there that helped you. 1 sack, so that's 1 sack across the last 2 games.
Yeah, the O-line did great. 1 sack on just 3 quarterback hurries, and, of course, all the success with the ground game.
Yeah, so that's, ASU averaging 4.8 yards per carry on 37 carries. I mean, gosh, it just looked pretty good there, for sure. I mean, so much to be proud of from ASU's perspective. And, you saw some decent runs. Even a guy like DeCarlos Brooks didn't get a lot of, run, but made the most of what he had. And there were some ones that were important. You had guys that just made plays when their name was called, when their number was called. And that's a very, very important thing. When you have a team that is rallying around one another, you don't get the sense that this team has a lot of selfishness in it and that, guys are mad that maybe others are getting more reps than them or things like that. And if that is the case, that's what can make for a special year.
Yeah, and Kenny says that, DeCarlos got some more run in the first half to kind of take some load off of Cam to save Scat for the second half. So we'll see if that strategy, as the grind of a season, especially, now we have a road game, earlier in their kind of biological clocks. So we'll see if there's, some more help there in terms of the ground game. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because this is a team that wants to run. The book's out. They know the opposition knows they want to run. So especially this week, are they going to be devoted to that ground game? So we'll see, how they continue to have success. But running on the Utah defense, no matter the year or the personnel, is a tough task. And credit to ASU's offense for getting the job done, especially in the fourth quarter when it counts. The defense, Joe, bend but don't break. I mean, I think the whole game swung. Utah took 4 trips into the red zone, scored 3 times, but just 13 points on 4 red zone trips. That will get the job done.
Yeah, as you mentioned, bend but don't break. It was getting a little nervous in more than one circumstance. Again, that few possession swing was just such an odd deal there in the second half. But yeah, when it mattered, ASU really got the job done. McCullough's first interception was deep into territory there, so that was a huge swing play. So obviously we talked about Caleb McCullough, 12 tackles, tackle and a half for loss, 2 interceptions. A couple other names to throw out there. Zach Swanson having the college game of his life. 7 tackles, a tackle for loss. He shared a sack with Jeff Clark. This is someone that didn't get much time at Texas, has been kind of in a reserve role and a little banged up earlier this year. So that's what you love to see. Especially, you love to see it in any circumstance, but you really love to see it when it's one of those guys who played local football. I believe he's from Brophy, if I'm not mistaken, right? Went to a powerhouse team, number 1 team in the country nowadays in Texas. Just didn't work out for him, and he came back. I mean, that is something when you have those sort of examples, that's something that you can sell to recruits and transfers moving forward. So, Keith Abney had a solid game, 6 tackles and an interception. Just a lot of people stepping up. Our guy Ben Coleman got a tackle. I would imagine that'd have to be on the interception, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so probably. Levitt got hit as he was throwing, so kind of like the ball just went a few feet to that Junior Tafuna, the D lineman, the defensive tackle, getting the rare pick, and then so good for Ben getting on the defensive stat sheet.
And another tackle. Hey, we got to bring it up. I'm just looking through these stats. Parker Lewis, the kickoff guy. I know y'all remember it if you saw the game. On what was a good return for the return guy for Utah. He came out there and put a hit on him and didn't shy about talking about it. I was kind of surprised he didn't get a flag, but I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah, he's basically a linebacker who just happens to be good at kicking the ball. He loves that contact. Now, of course, we got to admit, Cam Rising, clearly not 100%. Obviously came in with the right hand, that's the throwing hand injury on the middle 2 fingers, and then early on in the game was hit after a throw cleanly, but that seemed to tweak his ankle. It seemed like Brian Ward was kind of content to rush just for throughout a lot of the game. Didn't bring a whole lot of pressure for what it was in a mobile quarterback, but man, Rising was just not the Rising that we've seen so far throughout the prior 7 years of his career, or 6 years. But yeah, and again, we might get on this on the TV show that it might not be the last time Sun Devils have to face Cam Rising. One, I think, major area of concern that goes back to last week. 3rd downs, Joe, still a major issue. There's ASU still giving them up at too far a clip, and even in like the 3rd and long situations, Utes were 7 of 15 on the night. That's something that just has to be better. Yeah,
that's a huge deal, and I think this week is going to be critical. I mean, moving forward is going to be critical because ASU has some good and some above averagely good teams remaining on its schedule, but this Utah game was really the only one at the time that I looked at the schedule and said, all right, ASU's felt like they had very little chance in that particular game. And so that one's obviously a win. So, if you can clean up some aspects of things, you can really do some damage. And maybe that, it's great for ASU to compete and to have this resilience and to win these close games. But it would also be great, not to have every single game boiled down to a single possession and, Hail Mary passes and things like that. And yeah, going back to Rising, it was, I mean, from a Sun Devil fan perspective, it was great to see, but it's also in one respect kind of sad to see. It's almost like, the guy that's just, the game is passed him by. I know this was due to injuries, but, if you see like just a old NFL players just really having at it, or someone that's just been playing for ages, it's like, all right, it's time to hang it up. It's someone that, as I'm sure most of you know by now, that he has been shut down for the remainder of the year. I don't know what the deal was with Isaac Wilson and if he had any health issues. I was just saying to myself throughout pretty much the duration, the majority of that game on Friday, like, why is Utah keeping Rising in this game? Like, I get that when he's healthy, he's among the better quarterbacks in the nation, but I mean, that guy might have been 30% healthy. But you know what? Hey, I'm not going to argue it. So a little unfortunate in some capacities, but not so much as to elicit too much pity. It helped ASU get the win there. But yeah, going back to what you're saying, ASU made the stops when they needed them, which is huge. But you can't continue game after game to be in like that 50% range of allowing, third down conversions. And as you mentioned, there have been far too many that are of that third and long variety, which are just absolutely maddening.
And of course, one area that they also need to clean up is that kicker. Of course, we going back to last week when the starter who entered the season, Ian Hershey, was benched after his second block kick. As Kenny Dillingham said, because of the low launch angles, Carson Kiefer replaced him. This week, Kiefer missed an extra point. Hershey was inserted back into the lineup. Kicker remains kind of a big concern of mine. We talked about all offseason long and heading into the year, so you wonder how those inconsistencies, perhaps that lack of trust at this point, will factor in going forward. You wonder if maybe that was a concern of just knowing that some of the play calling, in terms of how they go, and are they going to go for it on fourth down? So in a slate in the back half of the schedule, there's going to be some tough games. There's going to be some close games, and special teams play obviously can be and often is the differentiator. And not having a kicker that you perhaps can rely upon outside of 40 or maybe even inside could be something that maybe costs this team a game.
And thankfully, I got some clarity on an issue that was just like nagging me since Friday. Is I thought I was a crazy person because I'm like, that's not Kiefer. That person's not wearing number 50. I thought it looked like it was Parker Lewis. I'm like, it's Parker Lewis that kicked and missed that extra point. But I was given some insider information, and it makes me like wrong, but not completely wrong, so I can live with that. That I guess Kiefer has changed his jersey number to one that begins with a 2.
26.
Which is very similar, obviously, to the 29 worn by Lewis. So I think that snuck in there because it's like, that is not 50. 50 is a very weird number for a kicker to wear. So that makes sense with that. So that's I thought that Parker Lewis was the one that makes that extra point, which is why because when I saw him get that tackle on special teams and really get fired up, I thought that was it. I thought that he was like a pissed off guy because he missed an important extra point, and he's taking that out on the return man for Utah. Just so happens he just wanted to hit a dude. I can get on board with that much. So, yeah, but I mean, that kept the game in peril, because if you get that extra point, things are locked up at the end. You don't have to worry. The interception that Caleb McCullough got, the game would have been a 2-score game at that point. It would have been a 9-point deal. So these things can and do add up, and ASU just has been able to survive past that. It is just one of those playing with fire type of things that if you have these inefficiencies at place kicker, you figure it's just got to catch up with you at some point, especially with ASU playing in so many close games. Now then, the kicking has been a reason they're playing in these close games, so it's just kind of like they're already dealing with it, I guess you could say, and surviving through it. But yeah, just very curious to see how the play calling goes, because you really can't be comfortable anything, I want to say outside of 40, but that might even be too much. Anything maybe beyond 35, anything back further than the 20-yard line, you know what I mean? So,
is there a situation where, like one of these road games or something, you're playing a team close, maybe you're on the brink of getting a win, and you have an opportunity for a 38-yard field goal or something along those lines, well within the range of a P4 kicker, and it's like 4th and 4. What's the matrix of decision making there look like?
Yeah, we're gonna see if things boil down to it. And but yeah, again, these are kind of first world problems to have, because many of us were thinking that the final tally for ASU would be the win total they have. Now, obviously, until more wins happen, you can't say anything for sure. But we'll see how that kicking goes, and that is something that as things progress, we'll see how ASU deals with that moving forward. But that is not the concern. You don't hit the transfer portal midseason, although who knows, maybe that will be the next thing to occur. But all in all, you look at this Utah game, and this really has the potential to be quite a statement victory for Kenny Dillingham and ASU if they can build upon it.
All right, so before we talk to a couple of the key Devils that helped contribute in a big-time way to that win over Utah, I think there's a question that needs to be asked. And, we've talked all season long, maybe like heading in, like, ASU's a better team, or maybe a few weeks ago, ASU's now a bowl team. But is ASU a good football team? Like, objectively good, no qualifiers, and not just, good in the context of a rebuild or, in any other context, just flat out. Because right now you have a team that is shown great resiliency to come back from adversity. You have I think a very good defense, an offense that has one of the nation's best on the ground, but like obviously there are, as we talked about, there are still some major issues, and this is a team that is still, I think, best days are ahead in 25 and beyond. But Joe, do you think this is a objectively good football team right now?
I think right now you got to go with yes, and you have to, because you can only use the material that you have in front of you. You can only use the games that have already been played. You can't look ahead and say, well, what's going to happen when they got to go to Kansas State or BYU is really good. These things, those games have not been played yet. You don't know what's going to happen with them. So for ASU to win the games that it has in the way that it has, to have just one loss at this point, and that was a competitive game. ASU has had basically one-score games with the exception of a blowout victory to start things. So they've been in a lot of close battles, and they've won more than they've lost in those circumstances. Those are scenarios, as we've talked about many, many times, that ASU teams of the past, including last year, we're not talking about the Larry Moore me past. We're talking about last year. Would have lost many, if not all, of those games. I mean, previous Sun Devil teams at this point in the season would be anything other than 5-1, and probably would be something along the lines of maybe like a 2-4 or something like that. So yeah, you got to say good. Now, great or well above average, that's where it remains to be seen. ASU's right on the outside looking in as far as the national rankings. If you're within the top 30, yeah, you have to be considered a good team. And if there are many people that thinking that maybe you got a little bit slighted by not being ranked in the top 25, then yeah, it carries that as well. So where this team goes, again, because anything is possible. This is such a crazy conference, and I think ASU is kind of a microcosm of that, just doing the unexpected. There are multiple teams doing that, one of which is ASU's opponent this week. So yeah, I'll say they're good because this isn't being done by luck. If it were all luck, the clock would have struck 12 on Cinderella. I don't really know all the details. I'm trying to use a comparison that's not really in my wheelhouse. That would have happened. I think ASU would have run out of that luck. That's just in college football. You can't get by on luck all the time. So again, a good team, I believe so, but we'll see how the remainder of the season shakes out, because it could go status quo from here. It could go up, could go down. Still a lot of football to be played.
A lot of football to be played, but yeah, this team is definitely ahead of schedule. And I think, yeah, when you're in, as you said, like if you're in that top 30, I think the qualifiers kind of go off, and all of a sudden you are what you are. And this is a team that just wins football games. They're 1-5, lost 1. They're a half quarter away from being 6-0. So we'll see. Obviously, the ebbs and flows of a season, especially in a conference with so much parity, remains to be seen. So, but half season so far in the books, about as good as it possibly could, especially when you consider this team was, again, I think this is something that they're kind of wearing with a little bit of point of ironic pride, the 16th ranked team in the preseason poll, and now they're coming in, among the top teams in their new conference. But before we talk to a couple of those key Sun Devil players that have been a big part of that 5-1 start, talk to you about our friends at Home Field Apparel, the premium vintage collegiate apparel that have an amazing ASU collection, including hats, a new coach's jacket, shirts, hoodies. The weather is starting to turn. I believe there's 70s in the forecast this weekend. That's pretty.
I read somewhere that the forecast for Saturday is lower in Tempe than it is in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
is what I have seen, and I'm looking at it right now. That's a lovely number, 74.
Woo!
If these numbers hold true, then I would imagine we're out of the 100-degree range of things, and my goodness, is that a wonderful thing to say.
So it's definitely hoodie season, folks. Get ready, especially also for the holidays, all your gift-giving needs. They have over 200 schools at this point, and they have a brand new line of campus classic pullovers that are pretty slick. No ASU as of yet, but we'll see what happens down the road, but there's certainly no shortage of great Sun Devil gear for you. And best of all, you can get 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. Just use offer code SUN, SUN, 24, SUN24 at checkout, homefieldapparel.com. Load up on all the Sun Devil gear, show that you're supporting this 5-1 football team, that you're helping to activate the Valley. A lot of good big games coming up here in the coming weeks. You got to look your best. All right, let's start things off with our conversations that were after Tuesday's practice. First up, you'll hear from linebacker Jordan Crook.
All right, so looking back against Utah, and obviously it's an offense that likes to run the ball. What's some of the keys and kind of containing them and limiting them to so under 20 points?
Just making sure my eyes and feet were correct. I kind of knew if my eyes and feet were correct, it was gonna take me to wherever, take me to where I needed to be, run game wise, and just kind of took it from there. But those are my two main things: just making sure my eyes and my feet were where they need to be. And after that, just finishing the plays.
Obviously, a big win against Utah, ranked opponent, AP top 25 comes out. You guys aren't on it. How, as a team, did that feel to not be on that list?
Just to be honest, we're not really worrying about that much. We just taking it each week at a time, worrying about the opponent that we got coming up, and just ultimately just trying to get better every day. They rank us, they rank us. If not, that's okay too. We hungry. We taking each week how we gonna take it. We're not looking ahead on nothing. Just taking it day by day, and just trying to get the best out of what we can today.
How gratifying was it to once you got back into the lineup to be having the impact that you have had so far in the last few games?
It's been pretty good. I felt my first two games kind of slow a little bit. Just in my opinion, but this last one definitely kind of picked it back up. I definitely feel good to go out there and be able to make an impact for my defense and go out there and help my team out and do whatever I need to do to just ultimately help us win. So it's definitely a great feeling, and just got to keep working every single day.
A lot of people would say this is a surprise team, and you guys have surprised people. I kind of think that you haven't surprised yourselves. You thought you guys were capable of this.
No doubt. Honestly, we say it all the time. The only people who really believe in us, it's us. And ultimately, that's all that matters. If everybody in this building, feel like we got the best team, and we gonna work towards that, then we'll go out there and show it on weekends. We just got to put the work in, and ultimately, all the other factors that's outside the building that talk like that, we can't worry about that no way.
What was it like seeing Caleb McCullough have the performance that he was able to have?
Man, it was great to see. That's my dog, Caleb. Just every play, it seemed like I said he was out there just running around, and he was just hitting something, and everybody was just excited for him. And it was good to see him get that Player of the Week. I love that dude, and it's good to go out there and fight with him every game.
Long road trip over to Cincinnati. How does your guys' preparation change when you got to obviously go over time zones, big flight?
Like Coach Diddy said, the preparation started Monday. It's not something you can wait on Thursdays, Fridays. We getting ready right now, getting more sleep, things like that, implementing different things, just to be prepared, for this weekend. The stats show that teams that go across time zones like this, they haven't won a lot of games. So we just making sure we prepared to go out there and play our best football.
The Cincinnati have a really good tight end. Montana was talking about it a lot. How have you guys? What have you seen on tape that you think you could take advantage of?
Just on tape, honestly, just feeling like I said, come down to the base thing. If our eyes and feet are correct, I feel like that's gonna put us in position to be able to make plays, be where we need to be, defend well, and ultimately get out the field, and execute. That's just from watching film. That's what I see.
As a team, do you feel like a win against Cincinnati would make you guys ranked?
I think after this week, if we win, we'd definitely be ranked. I definitely think so. I don't pay much attention to it, but I think so.
When you were looking at coming to, when you were in the portal, did you visit any place else?
Actually, I didn't. The weekend that I came up here, I had actually had a UCF visit scheduled, and I didn't go. I canceled it, and I ended up coming here, and I ended up committing here.
So this was the only place you visited in the portal?
The only place I went.
How long were you in the portal?
What was it? It wasn't too long. What was that window? I forgot when it was. It wasn't long at all. I think I was in the portal. I think it happened all so fast. It might have been 2 weeks.
The samples,
Oh yeah. He came and got me. He came and got me quick. Sam came and got me, and I kind of knew once Sam called me, I really wasn't looking at nowhere else for real. I started building that relationship with Coach Crook. He came out to Arkansas to see me. Him and Coach Dillingham came back a week later. So I kind of knew everything. I knew I was I think this is where I want to be.
What was it like playing in the SEC?
It was definitely a fun experience. Just playing those type of guys every week. It's gonna be the best. Ultimately, that's what people say. So just playing in that every week, and being able to bring that here, that mentality, that type of drive to this team. I feel like definitely been impactful, and I'm just trying to make myself better and make everybody else around me better as well.
How's SEC ball compared to the Big 12?
I definitely feel like the Big 12, like I thought the Big 12 was honestly gonna be a little bit more finesse, but it's a lot of run game going on. It's more similar than I thought. Honestly, like a lot of people in both leagues run the same stuff. Like everybody kind of run the similar things. Some people run things a little different, but like only difference I really can say is that the cat's just a little bigger than the SEC. That's all. But I mean, as far as the ball goes, like physicality, things like that, like I definitely feel like this definitely like the same.
Has Shimon and Justin told you guys anything about Cincinnati?
Oh yeah, nah, like them guys that gave me the whole rundown of Cincinnati. So it's been good to get that info from those guys and just little things and stuff like that, tendencies and things like that. So it's been pretty cool to just have that extra ear, and so that's been good.
What type of intel?
I ain't gonna say too much.
How excited do you think they are to go back there and play Cincinnati?
Ah man, that's all they've been talking about. Them two excited. I think they're gonna have a great game this weekend.
So halfway through the season right now, what are some of the things that you feel like collectively this defense has done really well, and also some things that you'd like to, on the back half to see this defense do and improve upon?
I think up to this point, the defense has played very, I want to say consistent. I want to say we've stopped the run very well. We're still working on getting our third down percentage up, still getting the red zone percentages up. We definitely did good in that this past weekend, but just overall, I feel like the main thing, like we've stopped the run. We just got to keep on improving on that. Ultimately, like you can stop the run. It's hard to just bounce off a lot of things if you can stop the run. So ultimately, I feel like we've been stopping the run at a high rate this year.
Those third downs of the last couple of weeks have kind of at least especially the first half, has been kind of an issue. What are some of the keys? Like what makes third downs different?
Third down is associated with a mindset. Like you got to have that mindset. Like okay, it's third down. Like a lot of people call it money down. Like this the down to get money and get off the field. And I think you just got to have that. You just got to have that mentality. So I think that's the big emphasis on third down, honestly.
Notice a lot of these interceptions are kind of zone drops that the linebackers have had. What is it that's just that you guys have worked on that's kind of enabled that?
Oh yeah, definitely zone drops. Like that's something Coach Coop, like he honed in on that every day. Like I said, eyes and feet. Like everything really come down to eyes and feet. Whether it's drops, run, I feel like if our eyes and our feet are correct, like ultimately, like with the scheme we're in and the type of coaches we have, like they're gonna put us in position to go out there and make plays and things like that.
That might matter against Cincinnati because of the passing attack and everything, right? So,
oh yeah.
What do you see from their team?
I see I honestly see a great run team. That likes to pass off the run. Physical team, somewhat similar to us. Like feel like they got something to prove. I see a lot of similarities in that way. They look hungry on film, like to run around, things like that. So it's definitely gonna be a great game this weekend.
And this overall linebacker depth and competitiveness you guys have had, the guys step up when you were hurt, other people have been out. Like what's that been like to be part of that?
Like I said, the type of room we have, like there's so much competitiveness and so much like talent in the room. Like it's not, you're not gonna see much drop off. Just to be honest, like I was out 3 weeks. Like we didn't miss a step. Like then came back. Like we still going. So like I say that like everybody gonna play. Everybody So it's good to have like that many linebackers and just everybody playing at a high level. Ultimately we just trying to make this team better than the defense.
Since coming back, he's pretty much fit right back into the fold. How have you felt just getting your feet back under you and getting right back into the game?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel great. First 2 games kind of feel like I feel like I just had to get comfortable every game. This past game, I feel like I was all right. The first 2 games, just trying to get my feet back right. Get my feet wet, stuff like that. But I'm feeling good right now. So I'm happy. I'm happy that how the linebackers playing. We just got to keep improving every single day.
All right, so back-to-back weeks where the offensive line really has done a good job leading the powerful run game, and the quarterback's not getting harassed too much at all. What have been the keys to these last 2 really strong performances?
Just focusing on our technique, getting vertical on our double teams, and just trusting in our plan each week.
What have been some of the things that kind of jumped out about your performance? Holding back that Utah always has a good defense. What's been the key to kind of your performance and kind of holding them back?
Like I said, just preparation. Our scout team does a great job preparing us each week to get us ready for all the looks that we may see.
Coach Dillingham and Saga have really talked about how you've been one of the most improved players year over year. When you first got here in Tempe, what were some of the big adjustments you made, and some of the things that you've done over the last year to really up your game?
Just spending more time with football outside of being here on campus. At home, watching more film, just asking more questions, being more involved. Trying to really get going out here and try to make an impact.
So who are some of the guys in that offensive line room that really you've worked with, maybe got some pointers from? You got some veterans in that group with you?
Yeah, Ben, Leaf, Max, Cade for sure, Sean even Emmett Boley. They've all helped me get to where I am today, and I wouldn't be here without them. I really appreciate their efforts to get me to where I am.
So coming up from the junior college ranks, what were some of the kind of lessons going that route that maybe have helped you now that you're at the Power 4 level?
Really just perseverance. Everything isn't going to be how it's supposed to be, but as long as you do keep going, never give up and trust in the process, it'll all pan out for you.
And working with a guy like Coach Tuatele, a guy who has a pretty impressive track record of offensive line development, what are some of the things in the year plus working with him that you've really seen, some of the specifics that he's helped raise your game?
It's really just about technique, hat speed, footwork, just doing the right things outside of football, the little things, everything you do from waking up and making your bed to just all the little things. He really instills that in us right when we get here. So, that's definitely something that he's done to help us to get to where we are.
Going on the road again this week, what are some of the keys, from an offensive line? Hostile environment's going to be loud. What are some of the things that you guys you maybe have learned from the first couple road trips that you can put forth to good use this Saturday?
Yeah, it's just about coming out here with a good attitude on Tuesday, ready to work, and get after the game plan. Not take it easy if you're not feeling good. Regardless of what, we got to come out here and do what we need to do to be successful on Saturday.
And then, of course, the early kickoff time, moving things up a little bit earlier. Do you think that's going to have, or the early kick time might be a concern at all, or is that just kind of a non-factor just because you guys pretty much practice at that time every day anyway?
Right. Also, they moved everything up sometimes, so we just getting ready to adjust to that time period. So we're ready for everything. Like I said, we just gonna persevere, get through whatever obstacles that are in front of us.
And then, of course, the Cincinnati defense has some quality players on it. What are some of the things that jump out to you in your film prep of just kind of get an early look at the Bearcats?
Yeah, they come out in that odd front, and they're physical. Everything, got to respect your opponent always, and we just coming out with that mindset that we need to do what we need to do. It's more about us rather than them,
We're going to go behind enemy lines and talk about the Cincinnati Bearcats here in a moment for our Know Your Enemy segment. But this one right here is not for the enemies. This is for the homies. If you're looking for some fire food from a restaurant owned and operated by diehard Sun Devils, you got to make Burrito Express your local burrito joint. BE is a family-owned business that began in 1995 with a combination of authentic recipes, competitive prices, and a comfortable atmosphere. All this makes dining with Burrito Express a unique experience. You've seen their passion on Twitter. You've seen how incredibly active they are in supporting Sun Devil student-athletes with a multitude of NIL deals. I mean, my goodness, you get the burrito in your system, you become one of the best running backs in college football. That's an easy equation right there.
Joe, have you had the burrito?
I have not quite yet.
I tried it for the first time the other day, and I'm not normally a guac guy.
Okay.
But I felt like I could go for at least 45 yards against that Utah defense.
All right. That's going to be on the list here. I got to get one this weekend to keep the ball rolling. Obviously, if you're part of the Sun Devil family, Burrito Express is a business well worth your support. They've got 7 Valley locations, 2 in Gilbert, 1 in Mesa, 1 in Chandler, 1 in Scottsdale, a Tempe location near Kyrene and Elliott, and that ASU location near Rural and University, just about a half mile from Mountain America Stadium. So wherever you are, especially if you live in the East Valley, there is a Burrito Express location, probably not too far from you. They're open from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Some locations open as early as 6 a.m. during the week, and they're open from 8 to 3 on Saturdays and Sundays. So you can sneak right in there a little bit before kickoff, 9 a.m. Arizona time this weekend. It's the perfect plan on game day. You can order online at theburritoexpress.com for pickup or delivery, and be sure to give them a follow on Twitter and Instagram at BurritoEXP and on TikTok at BurritoExpressAZ.
All right, joining the program now to give us an inside look at Cincinnati is JT Smith, who covers the Bearcats for thefrontofficenews.com. JT, thanks for taking the time out and staying up late for us. How are you doing tonight?
Man, I can't complain, man. Thanks for allowing me to talk a little Arizona State UC ahead of the game on Saturday.
All right, so let's kind of maybe start off things with a large-scale view. Last year, Cincinnati was kind of in a similar spot to Arizona State, kind of a first year in the Big 12 conference. And what was that first year like for UC athletics? Maybe not just limited to football, and how impacted was the department with the move to a power conference?
Honestly, man, okay, minus how football went last year, it's amazing. For a guy that covers the team, I've covered the team for about to age myself, but over 10 years. You could just see the impact of the excitement again of playing teams like Houston. Well, if you play Houston in the AAC, but you get to play at Kansas in basketball. You get to play at Kansas State. I feel like the camaraderie or just the overall excitement from the fan base, and then even the department that they have those big games. It was amazing. That part was amazing. Now the season, especially on the football side, wasn't amazing. It was, you go from the AAC being like one of the top teams to thinking you might have a chance to be at least a bowl eligible team to just getting pounded on. That wasn't amazing. We won't sugarcoat that. But we on the basketball side, I feel like that team competed in one of the best conference, not even one of the best basketball conference. So, not to get, shoot ahead to the basketball, which hopefully you guys that call me up for basketball, that should be pretty exciting. But yeah, I think just overall the department is super exciting. Just in general, the fan base, overall athletic department, everybody's excited about being in the Big 12.
So a couple of similarities between Cincinnati and Arizona State in terms of just how a relatively new head coach heading into the second year, 3 wins apiece last season, but much improved here so far in 2024. Bearcats and Sun Devils, closing in on bowl eligibility. I believe the 14th and 16th pick teams in the preseason media poll. Yeah. What has Scott Satterfield done so far to turn things around in the second year?
Yeah, man. Have you that Spider-Man meme? Yeah. Where it's the twins. Yep. That's us. We're looking in the mirror. To be my joking side, but I feel like Scott Satterfield, he's done a lot of good. Because last year people were 3-9, only get 1 win in the Big 12 after being going to the college football playoff just less than 2 years ago. Everybody's kind of like, hey, what's going on? You lose a game against Pitt, you're up, 21 points and lose. Everything kind of was, the chips were kind of, pushed against where Satterfield could have, if he was just tucking his tail and running, after, losing that Pitt game, everything could have went to shambles, but it hasn't. The Bearcats have, now they're 4-2, 2-1 in the Big 12. They doubled their win total in the Big 12 already, so that's definitely great. But to have adversity, which last year when they had adversity, I feel like it just went array. Just went got real haywire. Rough. Like the team, they said all the right things, in the preseason, and then they said all the right things when they did lose to Pitt, and they actually have stayed true to their word. So that's something that I feel like Scott Satterfield talked about, getting his guys in here, getting guys that have bought in, and you can see so far, like no matter how the season will end up, but right now you could tell this team looks night and day from the team from last year. So what he was preaching, people are listening to.
Now, talking about the stuff on the field, starting on the offensive side, what should ASU fans and obviously the ASU defense expect to see schematically from this Bearcat offense?
Okay, so this team, man, so this is the second time I've talked about this, so sorry if I get long-winded. But this team they can spread you out. You can see 3 to 4 receivers out there on time. Normally they go 3 receivers, but this is a team that can have anywhere from, they can go 11 personnel to they can go to 12 to maybe even 13. I've seen them have 3 tight ends, 2 on the end, and then 1 as a fullback, kind of like a H-back role. Joe Royer kind of can do everything. He's kind of like the Swiss Army knife. You might see him in the backfield. Francis Sherman's one of the guys that normally lines up in the backfield when he's in the game, but it's one of those ones you never see really 2 running backs in at the same time, but they're real multiple. You have a threat of Brandon Sorsby running the ball as well. He doesn't run as much as Emory Jones did last year, but he's very dangerous. He scored last week on his feet, but his arm, he can make all the throws on the field, and I think that's making this team so dynamic right now. I know last week is kind of anomaly. They only scored 19 points, but when you have 2 turnovers in the red zone, that kind of messes up your scoring, and then you miss a chip shot field goal as well. So I think the Arizona State defense, it depends on which way they want to go. I think the passing game has been so effective as of late that they're going to try to slow that down, which could actually work in the Bearcats' favor because they do have a strong running game as well. It's just that Brendan Sorsby's been so good, so efficient, only 3 interceptions this year, that the Bearcats' pass game has kind of went to another level.
And talking about Sorsby, what things have really allowed him to take the leap forward? With the terrific statistics so far this year.
Man, I think he's just like a perfect fit for the offense. Plus, he had a lot of experience playing in the Big 12 before he was injured. I think he played 10 games. I'm sorry if I don't have that right, but no, he played through an injury last year as well. But you can tell his experience level just from the first day you've seen him, and then he's getting more comfortable in this offense. Has a big arm, can make all the throws, and I think the offensive line having so much continuity, having those guys have played so many games, it makes it where he's just able to play free football, and he's protecting the ball, and he's been making some big time plays for the Bearcats.
So what threat do these top wide receivers and tight end Joe Royer pose to the ASU secondary?
Man, Joe Royer, man, he has been, when you guys have a former Bearcat on your team, and Shimon Mateer, he's a guy, he's very talented. When the Bearcats lost him, I was like, man, who's going to replace him? And when they got Joe Royer, he's kind of, I think he might fit in even better with the scheme that the Bearcats have right now. So it's kind of one of those things where he can beat you. I mean, he's key guy that can, go, on the outside of the numbers. He can meet you in the middle of the field. I mean, I know it's Miami, Ohio, and Miami, Ohio isn't Arizona State, isn't a Power 5 school, but he had a play that was called back because of, I think, was that a lineman too far down the field? It was an RPO, and it was an 80-yard touchdown that got called off the books for him. And where he pretty much, he breaks one, stiff arms a guy, and then outruns everybody else. And it was just like, dang, but it got called back. But, I mean, he's one of those dudes where Arizona State's going to have to know where he's at on the field at all times. And I don't know if I'm jumping ahead or not. He's been like a perfect complement to Xavier Henderson, who's the Bearcats' #1 receiver. And they're kind of like yin and yang, like if you take away Xavier, Joe's going to burn you. So, and if you don't care about Joe, if you want to take away Joe, then, I feel like Xavier's going to do his thing as well. So they've been a very good complement to each other. And I just think it all ties back into how good Sorsby's been playing.
So switching over to the defensive side of the ball, a quick look at some of the key stat categories. See Cincinnati in the 90s or hundreds in some areas, but also some key areas like scoring defense and turnovers and rushing touchdowns allowed. Very good numbers there. It seems like maybe the profile of maybe a bend but don't break defense. How would you characterize the Bearcats so far this season?
No, you said it perfectly. They are bend but don't break. Where it kind of makes people pull their hair out because they give up so many yards. I don't know. You probably see it's over 400 yards total consistently, and they just do a good job. Once they get in the red zone, they do a great job of bowing up and being opportunistic. I mean, was it 3 games in a row? I feel like they had an interception in the red zone on the first drive of I think Pitt, Miami, of Ohio. And what was in Houston? They had 3 games in a row. They had interception. Josh Minkins had 2 of them, and then I want to say was that Derek Canteen might have had one in Miami. But long story short, that was the same. It was like same situation. The teams get inside the 20 to 15 yard line, and the Bearcats make a play. It's something that you kind of playing with fire. But so far, even against UCF, I think they had a forced fumble in the red zone. It seems like they just have a knack for making a play when it counts and when teams look like they're about to score. So it's one of those things where Arizona State has to be licking their chops a little bit because of you guys' style of play. But it's kind of one of those things where I think the Bearcats won't feel uncomfortable if Arizona State is in that area because they've passed the test many times when you kind of think like, oh man, this is a for sure score, and they hold them to a 3 or they get the ball back. So. It's one of those things, man. I feel like I'm ranting a little bit, but it's one of those things where you kind of like, man, you pull your hair out, they get down there, but then once they get down there, they find a way to make a play.
So I'm going to put you in the shoes of ASU offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo. What kind of game plan are you drawing up to maybe have that defense break, a little bit here on Saturday afternoon?
Okay, so if I am your offensive coordinator, I'm probably thinking what like every other ASU fan is thinking. I'm running Cam Scatterboo until he tells me he doesn't want to run anymore, and I'm making the Bearcats, have massive, 7 to 8 in the box. And then I'm still probably going to run. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm running unless they're just getting, a lot, which the Bearcats do get a lot of tackles for losses, but I'm running them, and then I'm play actioning off of that, and then seeing if I can get a couple shot plays, and that's how I'm playing the game. I'm probably not running towards Dante Corleone, which is right in the middle, but everything's off tackle, and I know Cam Scatterboo doesn't really care about making people miss. He's more like I'm running through you. He's kind of Marshawn Lynch-ish type of running back, where he's like, hey, I'm trying to run through your face. So I'm not running towards Corleone as much as possible. That's person. I don't care how good your lineman is. I'm kind of staying away from him, and then I'm play actioning, man. I'm play actioning when I do throw, but that's me. I think this is a Cam Scatterboo 30+ attempt game, and if he's not getting that many attempts on a rushing game, he's getting screen passes and swings. So he has to touch the ball 30+ no matter what.
So who are some Bearcats maybe a little bit under the radar, maybe that might be an X factor type player that could go a long way into determining Saturday's outcome? Okay,
so we want to go offense or defense, you tell me.
Let's do maybe one name from each.
Okay, cool. So we'll go on the defensive side, and I'll go X factor because he's kind of a guy that he just got an award from the Big 12 for Newcomer of the Week, Jake Golday. So he's a FBS transfer and had a heck of a game against UCF. He's kind of getting his feet under him. He's like super athletic. One of those guys that can make plays in the pass game and the rush game. And we know Cam Scatterboo is going to run the ball a lot. And I feel like he's going to have a good big game against Arizona State if the Bearcats want to come out of this thing with a dub. And then on the offensive side of the ball, that's a little tough. I'm kind of cheating because, I think Brendan Sorsby's been so good that, people are kind of like short changing, Corey Kiner. I'll say he's the X factor because he kind of battled a little injury. But he's kind of like the heart and soul of the team, honestly, especially on the offense side of the ball. So I'll say he's the X factor. He got banged up against Texas Tech. It was lucky they had a bye week. So, he played, with super pads on his wrist, probably play the same way, against you guys. So I'm going to go with Corey Kiner, man, because he's one of those guys that is very – it's almost like, well, he makes people miss him a little bit more than Cam does, but they're kind of they're cut from the same cloth, so they're real tough dudes.
A couple of former Sun Devils on this Cincinnati roster, and DJ Taylor, Carter Brown, of course, Emory Jones was on the team last year, but it doesn't look like Brown or Taylor are doing too much in terms of production so far this year. What's the update for any ASU fans still wondering what happened to DJ Taylor and Carter Brown?
Okay, so DJ. He switched the corner. He's kind of like a corner safety. So last year he got a respectable amount of playing time, but I think with the transfers that came in, he kind of got lost in the shuffle. But he is a person that does feel like he's a special teams guy right now. I think it would take some injuries for him to really kind of see the field right now. So it just depends. But last year he did play. In 2023 played a lot, but this year it's just been a little bit different for him. And then with Carter Brown, he was a starter. He was a starting kicker, I think the first 2 games, but he missed a couple, kind of was battling an ankle injury during fall camp. And you could kind of tell, I think the game before he got benched per se, he just didn't look like the Carter Brown that we saw last year. That was, excellent. I was watching him. He just wasn't getting a lot of lift, possibly with Nathan Hawks kind of being up and down. He started off the first 2 games real solid. The last 2, he's been a little shaky. I think that they're having kind of maybe an open competition again, possibly, where we could see Carter Brown maybe against you guys. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that, but hopefully him not kicking as much. Hopefully his ankle is a little bit, a lot better, and he's getting more air under the ball. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm thinking Nathan Hawks will still be kicking, but with how he's been struggling the last couple of weeks, it's a coin flip. Who knows? Because Carter Brown does have that equity of having kicked, a whole season very well as well. So, and then it was we had Emory Jones too, right? But he's in the NFL now. So, yep.
And so last one for you, obviously the Sun Devils making the trip back to the Eastern time zone. First kind of a chance to play at Nippert Stadium. What kind of atmosphere? Is it a hostile atmosphere for opposing teams to come in? Is it how rowdy is it? What should those Sun Devil players be expecting in terms of the atmosphere on Saturday afternoon?
Okay, so I will preface it by this: don't be fooled by the size of the crowd. Because, you look at that stadium size and it says, I think, 39,800.
Something like that,
yeah. So I think they had to take out, when FC Cincinnati was there, he took out a few seats to accommodate soccer for a little bit. So I think it might have took out maybe 1,200 seats or something like that. I might be messing that up. Sorry about that, Bearcat fans, if y'all want to smack me on the wrist on that. But long story short, have you seen the article? Who was that? The dude from, was it Stadium? What's the middle linebacker for Oklahoma? He's pretty good. I know I can't think of his name. I'm going to butcher it, so I don't want to say it. But he literally, last year, he came, I think it might have been the first Big 12 game, and it was at Nippert Stadium. And he was like, hey, I played X, Y, and Z here and there. He said, the loudest place that I've been to is Nippert Stadium. And it was like, I was even shocked because, he's played here at Oklahoma for 3 or 4 years. So it was like, dang, that's super impressive. But I guess we're so accustomed to it. But like when I'm on the field, like say covering the game, and I'll watch like the first series or 2 on the field, especially when it's not super cold. I'm spoiled like that and go upstairs. But you can just feel that the fans are over top of over top of, the players per se. Like it's on it, it's small, but they're there. So and it's real loud. I feel like how the stadium's made, the the noise is kind of like hovering, so you just feel it, man. It's going to be a hostile environment. The Bearcats are actually winning. So, last year, if they're 1-4, that might sound a little different, but now that they're 4-2 and have a chance of this thing, this Big 12 is, wide open. Who plays the cleanest is going to have a chance. Man, it's going to be an interesting. Arizona State better have be doing that noise thing at practice and kind of understanding how close it's going to be, because it's not like it's not Ohio State or Alabama or LSU where you got 70 to 100,000 people. It's going to be 39,000 just right on you, and they're going to be screaming from before the game starts.
All right, before we break down the Cincinnati Bearcats, a huge thank you and shout out to Cactus Sports. So while many ASU stores have come and gone, Cactus Sports is a community staple. Founded, owned, and operated by ASU alumni since 1992, every purchase made through Cactus Sports results in royalties that help support Arizona State University. Many of their competitors have been bought out and operated by out-of-state corporations, while Cactus Sports stays locally owned and operated. They consider it a privilege to be able to work together with their guests, alumni, fans, and students who help give their input for some of the products Cactus Sports buys. When you purchase from Cactus Sports, not only are you assured of the highest quality officially licensed merchandise, but you also have the satisfaction knowing that you've truly helped support local small businesses within the Sun Devil community. Cactus Sports is located at 514 South Mill Avenue in Tempe, open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and Sundays from 10 to 6. You can also view their full inventory and shop online at cactusports.com with free domestic ground shipping for orders of $75 or more. They also feature items such as the Iron Devils line, that's my favorite, and Activate the Valley line that includes a donation from every purchase to ASU Sun Angel NIL Collective. And also, they're a retail partner of another sponsor of ours that you heard about earlier, Home Field Apparel. Locally owned and ASU alumni operated since 1992. Shop at Cactus Sports and think local, buy local, be local. So the Cincinnati Bearcats up ahead for Arizona State University. Another one of these, unique teams, unique locations for the Sun Devils. I mean, heck, we were talking about it as we record that we had a guest in from the Eastern time zone that we had to factor in. I mean, that is something that is just a little different than what we're used to here on this side of the country. But this is a really, really interesting game. These teams kind of mirror each other in a few ways. From last year to this year, really improving, some good head coaching going on right now. So this should be really a heck of a game on Saturday.
Yeah, two teams that overachieving. I believe Cincinnati's 14th in the preseason poll, and I think I had them 15th because I thought Houston's the clear worst, and then Cincinnati. But yeah, they've really been turning it on. They've taken care of business. They're not setting the world on fire necessarily, but they're just getting the job done. I know, after the first year, the Scott Satterfield, there was maybe some warm seat talk, not a hot seat, but some stuff. But he's really been able to show that he's able to have maybe on the brink of replicating some of that success he had earlier in his career. But so this is going to be the homecoming game, so it's going they're going to be fired up there. So not only is it just timing wise and just kind of 9 a.m. for Arizona time start, but also that crowd with a team that is now pushing for a bowl. It's a homecoming game. They're going to be rowdy.
If you're watching this video and you saw a weird expression just go on my face, it's because I thought that I deleted all my notes about this game and we're just going to have to wing it. But I found it, so we're good. So going back a handful of years, this is just a really interesting program to talk about. Cincinnati entered into the elite of the group of 5 teams under Luke Fickell, back-to-back 11-win seasons in 2018 and 19. It's, I remember Cincinnati being very good, and obviously they went to the college football playoff. The consistency of how good they were is something that just kind of got lost in the mush of time there. Again, back-to-back 11-win seasons, 2018 and 19, a 9-1 finish during that COVID-shortened year in 2020, 13-1 with the college football playoff appearance in 2021. The only loss to Alabama. Then after the 2022 season, Fickell, who, by the way, I didn't know this before doing research today, he started on the defensive line for Ohio State against ASU in the 1997 Rose Bowl. I just didn't know that he started for them in that particular game. He left for Wisconsin. In came Scott Satterfield, who helped transition Appalachian State to the FBS level as their head coach from 2013 to 2018. Then he was at Louisville from 2019 to 2022. In year one last year, which was Cincinnati's first season in the Big 12, He was 3-9, but 2024 has shown a turnaround similar to ASU, of course, a 3-9 team last year. Bearcats are 4-2 entering this game. They've got wins over Towson, Miami of Ohio, Houston, and most recently UCF, with the losses to Pittsburgh, which is a team that's rolling right now, and Texas Tech, which ASU knows certainly is a quality program. If you look at this game, a lot of uniqueness to it. The kickoff time is one of the foremost elements among that uniqueness. Obviously, a 9 a.m. kickoff here in the Phoenix area. This is just the 10th time in the last 30 years that ASU has kicked a game off before noon Arizona time. Underscoring that, not talking about the time in the place where the game is played, but Arizona time. And as we talked about in the past, this is the earliest kickoff for ASU since that 9 a.m. start at Northwestern in 2004. So again, that's a unique thing. I know people are putting some stock into that, which may be a thing. I'm told, ASU practice in the morning. They're used to that sort of time. We will see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, normally ASU starts their practice at 9 a.m., and so that's about correlates to kickoff time. This week, though, they're moving things up a little bit. So the practices are starting at 8 a.m., so earlier start today and tomorrow, and then they're actually heading out back east Thursday morning, so they're getting a little extra time to acclimate. Kenny even mentioned, instead of getting up at 5 a.m. each day, he's getting up at 4. So everything's just kind of shifting a little bit. You got a bye week afterwards, so why not to go all in and try to get every advantage you can.
So as we break down Cincinnati, unique on offense and defense in terms of having some areas that they're very, very good in, some areas that they struggle in. So it's kind of the reason that they've put themselves in the position that they are, being a couple games over 500. So if we look at the stats on offense, this is a top 25 team in passing offense at about 291 yards per game. That ranks them 22nd nationally. They are tied for 23rd in the nation in total offense at a little over 460 yards per game. This next one I think is going to be a huge statistic for this week. They rank 14th in third down offense, does Cincinnati, but they're tied for 103rd in red zone offense and tied for 82nd in turnovers lost. So again, some areas where they do very well, some areas where they struggle, but all things considered, as we'll break down, they do have a lot of talent on offense.
Yeah, and the third down mark really jumps out to me. I think third downs again are going to be the story of this game, as we'll get to. In terms of what they are defensively on that critical down. We talked about off the top about ASU struggles there as well. But this offense is going to show a bunch of looks. They're also going to show a bunch of tight ends. They like to run 12 personnel a lot. And, of course, you have a mobile quarterback that really kind of adds to something else that you got to account for. You're not going to be facing Cam Rising in his kind of gimpy ankle a little bit. This is going to be a quarterback in Brent Sorsby who's going to challenge you a little bit. They like to run the ball a lot. They like to leverage that into a lot of play action opportunities. So going to be a lot of looks that ASU's defense has to account for.
And Cincinnati's offense, similar to ASU, similar to a lot of schools in the country these days, a lot of transfers, many of which from power conference teams, from some elite teams that are getting a shot and really making the most of it. So starting at quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, he transferred from Indiana, where he redshirted in 2022 and then started 7 games last year for the Hoosiers. He's averaging 287 passing yards per game, 13 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He leads the team with 4 rushing touchdowns as part of his 70 net rushing yards. He had a career high of 426 passing yards and 4 touchdowns against Texas Tech 3 weeks ago. An accurate passer as well. He completes about 66% of his throws, and he ranks 13th nationally in passing yards per game, and he's tied for 21st in the nation in passing touchdowns. Feels like every week here in the Big 12, whether it's a quarterback or a running back, we're talking about a guy that's within like the top 20 in some key categories at what he does.
Yeah, it's the offensive conference. I mean, this is maybe not the all air raid thing, but Big 12 teams find a way to get it done. Yeah, just he's a big dude. He's efficient. He can run. He's making good decisions. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of game plan Brian Ward dials up. We kind of talked about this a lot. He likes to, at times, bring a lot of exotic looks and bring pressure from different levels to confuse quarterbacks and get them off schedule. Didn't really do that so much with a quarterback in Rising last week that was perhaps a little limited, but Sorsby is definitely a guy that you're going to have to account for in the run game as well, but also a guy who makes some really good decisions.
Yeah, and you're just going to have to force him into some bad decisions. You're going to have to force errors. As we talked about, he's got better than a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio at this point. Only 3 interceptions in 6 games. That's just remarkable play from the quarterback position there. But that's not all when it comes to talented, skilled players for Cincinnati. Running back Corey Kiner, he's got 496 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns, averages almost 6 yards per carry. He began his career at LSU in 2021. Former Ohio State transfer Evan Prairie has 240 yards and 3 touchdowns. He averages nearly 9 yards per carry. As a backup, his productivity has come in spurts. He has a 105-yard game and a 76-yard game, but also 3 games under 10 yards. But he's a very talented backup there. ASU has faced a couple teams now. Go back to Kansas and how they operated of kind of a double-headed attack there at running back. So in the ground game between these backs, and like you mentioned, Sorsby can move his feet as well. Some threats there.
Yeah, ASU is probably glad that Keyshawn Elliott gets to play the whole game because, this is a team that's going to be built off the run, and especially when they're bringing in, 12 personnel, even 13, and, bringing in some stuff. You'll see some tight ends, some in that H-back, fullback type of role as well, and Kiner's a guy who, as you heard JT talk about, is maybe similar in terms of the style of Scattaboo, guy who wants to run to contact and be powerful a little bit. So this is going to be a team that is going to be built kind of like ASU. We just keep saying these similarities. But yeah, just like ASU is going to be built as a run-first team, even though they've obviously put together some pretty impressive passing numbers.
So for the pass catchers, the wide receiver Xavier Henderson has 34 receptions for 474 yards and 4 touchdowns. He has 3 100-yard games this year. He transferred in from Florida prior to last season. Tony Johnson has 20 catches for 203 yards, 3 scores. He came in as a transfer from Florida Atlantic. A guy that could have a big game and has been having a big season so far. Tight end Joe Royer. He transferred in from Ohio State. He's got 28 catches for 346 yards and 2 touchdowns. Whether those numbers jump off the page or out of your listening device or not, they should. He ranks 7th nationally among tight ends in receptions and 8th nationally in receiving yards. He leads all Big 12 tight ends in both categories. So we're talking about a guy here who is well on his way to an all-conference, potentially first-team all-conference. I know a guy like Brant Keithy's got a lot of name recognition and productivity, but what Royer is doing is really impressive, and you figure he could very well be a huge factor in Saturday's ball game.
It's going to be a real good challenge for ASU's linebackers. Jordan Crook has been a guy who's really impressed me in terms of coverage. He had a pass breakup last week, but also just the ASU safety group, which has been one of the strengths of this defense. They're going to have their hands full because that's one of the guys who can really make you pay along that middle of the in the middle of the field as well. And of course, it's all predicated up front with a very veteran line. All 5 starters back. This is an experienced group that has a lot of chemistry built over the years. So as Joe alluded to, they have impressive numbers on the ground, on the run, through the air as well. So a lot of very different weapons that are going to be playing at home, and another stiff challenge for this ASU defense and a conference that presents a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, what it's going to boil down to is if you're ASU, you've got to continue to make quarterbacks pay, and that didn't happen so much against Kansas. Obviously, it did against Utah and other games as far as forcing turnovers. You want to keep that run game in check. ASU has had even Mekhi Bernard had a very good day, but it didn't change the outcome of the game. So they just haven't had running backs who have really been the significant difference maker between a win and the loss, at least on the other side. Obviously, ASU's running back has been responsible for virtually every win that the Sun Devils have to date this season. But a lot of skilled talent there on offense for Cincinnati. Switching over the defense, and this is really where you're going to just see some weird numbers in terms of being in one category very good, some very not so good. You heard it previously about being a bend but don't break defense, and that really is what this is. So Cincinnati ranks 106th nationally in total defense, 98th and 91st respectively in pass and rush defense, 82nd in the country in third down defense. You'd think a team with those sort of credentials, if you want to call them that, would probably have a 2-4 record, not a 4-2 record. But they are tied for 35th in the nation, allowing just over 20 points per game, and that's the bottom line right there. They're in the top 30 in team sacks and turnovers gained, and a really weird number that I found. Again, they're in the 90s in rush defense. statistically as far as yardage is concerned. But they've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns. They're both by Brooks of Texas Tech. Only 3 teams in the country have allowed fewer than those 2 rushing touchdowns that Cincinnati has surrendered. So that's just kind of a weird anomaly where they let up, comparatively speaking, quite a bit of yardage, but they just don't let folks get into the end zone. So that bend but don't break thing is very much going on, and that's kind of how you get to a team that's a couple games over 500 at this point.
I think it boils down to, one of the numbers is 35%. That's the number of opponent drives into the red zone that end in a touchdown. So, yeah, they're not letting you cross the goal line too often. Yeah, so you mentioned some of these things just, there's triple-digit rankings in terms of like yards per play, 115th. Yards per carry is bad. The passer rating, but yeah, and not great on getting off the field like ASU's defense the last couple weeks. But ultimately, when it counts, they're opportunistic, whether it's with a key takeaway, a stop, a play behind the line of scrimmage that could derail a drive and force teams to have to settle for something. This is a Bearcat defense that may not. I think it's still probably another year or two in terms of trying to build up in this new system, but they're getting it kind of like we saw last week with ASU against Utah. The game swung on their ability to keep Utah out of the end zone despite getting into the red zone, and that's I think the script that's helped land this Bearcat team to their surprising 4-2 start.
So let's focus a little bit more intently on the rush defense for Cincinnati. You just get the impression the signs are pointing toward this being a game where ASU is going to need to run the ball often and effectively to leave town with a victory. So last week, Central Florida had 196 yards at 4.9 yards per carry, even in defeat. The game before that, Texas Tech had 231 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns at 6.4 yards per carry. Prior to that, Houston, again, not a great team, 140 yards on 4.5 yards per carry. Pitt had 196 yards on 5.9 yards per carry. So what am I getting to here? Is that Cincinnati has played 4 power conference opponents this year, and in those 4 games, they've allowed an average of 193 rushing yards per game at nearly 5.5 yards per carry per game. That is information that I think is going to make a dude like Cam Scadaboo smile real big while he's eating his burrito from Burrito Express.
Yeah, there's no secret. ASU likes to run the ball. That's what they want to do, whether it's with Cam, QB run game, getting perhaps mixing some other backs in there as well. As Kenny mentioned on his Monday presser, the Relique Brown's not going to be a factor, but DeCarlos got some run as well. So this is going to be a run-heavy game plan for the Devils, and they're going after that Bearcat defense that's given up a lot of yards. And I don't know, it's going to be kind of one of those immovable objects versus unstoppable force. When ASU does get in near the goal line, not a whole lot of people stopping Cam from getting in the end zone. The Bearcats on the flip side haven't let anybody outside of apparently Brooks from getting in there as well. So that'll be a fun matchup to watch.
So just to put some names on some of the key players on defense for Cincinnati, linebacker Jared Bartlett, he leads the team with 30 tackles and 5.5 TFLs. He's second on the team with 3.5 sacks. Defensive end Eric Phillips has that team lead with 4 sacks. Free safety Josh Minkins has a pair of interceptions, and he's second on the team with 3 pass breakups. Defensive back Antoine Peak Jr. tied for second in the nation with 3 forced fumbles. I know they've got some additional talent on the defensive line as well, so there are quite a few guys getting it done there. A few names that Sun Devil fans might remember or maybe have forgotten that play for the Cincinnati Bearcats are a few names that used to be on the Sun Devil roster. Now, you may not see or hear from either of them on Saturday's game, but just to let you know what they're up to, DJ Taylor, you remember that great kick and punt returner who played a little defensive back, a little running back for ASU. He transferred to Cincinnati prior to last season. He's still with the team. He has 2 game appearances this year, but no defensive stats or special teams stats. Obviously, he had some great run at that. We always remember the opening to that 77 demolition of Arizona. DJ Taylor taking that opening kick to the house. Carter Brown, he's got 2 games played. Of course, he was a place kicker. That was a highly recruited high school player out of the state of Texas that played a year for ASU before transferring last season. He's 3 of 5 on field goals. Those were in the first 2 games of the season. As you may have heard, he's still listed on the depth chart, possibility to play throughout the rest of the season, but seems likely that we may or may not see much from either of them, but that's what those former Sun Devils are up to with the Bearcats.
We also be remiss if we didn't talk about nose tackle Dante Corleone. call him the Godfather, to take the obvious pun there, but one of the best defensive tackles in the nation. And, some scary moments in the offseason when they found some blood clots. Thankfully that's all been cleared up. He's been able to play, and this is not a guy to be trifled with in terms of run defense. And he's a guy who I believe a couple years ago has some All-American recognition on his resume. So yeah, they're going to be. They have some playmakers there on the defensive side, but as we talked about, ultimately right now just kind of the sum of the parts isn't quite there as of yet. But there's still some notable guys to contend with on Saturday afternoon.
And before we look into our keys for the game and our score predictions, big thank you to Sun Devil Family Charities, a 501c3 nonprofit organization created primarily for the purpose of raising funds to provide financial assistance to Arizona State University alumni, students, staff, and immediate family members adversely affected by medical issues. Their SDFC Cares program allows qualified individuals to request financial assistance by completing an application and submitting verification of medical expenses, which are then evaluated by SDFC's Patient Services Committee. The SDFC Cares program is the flagship program through which Sun Devil Family Charities provides financial assistance to those qualified applicants, individuals and their immediate family members who have an affiliation with Arizona State University and are facing financial hardship due to a serious health or medical condition are encouraged to submit an application if that applies to you or someone in your life. If they're going through hard times due to medical conditions, if they've got affiliation with Arizona State, Sun Devil Family Charities might be able to help them out. Monetary donations are always appreciated and support those in need due to an unexpected medical condition. There's also volunteer and sponsorship opportunities. Those can be found online at their website, sundevilfamily.org. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/sundevilfamilycharities and on Twitter at sundevil_family. So let's take a look now at the keys. This is a game, again, as you turn the page from a euphoric win against Utah to this week's ball game. The most important game is the one that's on the slate for that particular week. So, Brad, what would be key number one in your estimation?
Third downs, both ways, got to be much, much better. We talked about the Bearcat offense being sensational among the top 15 in the country and moving those chains and keeping the drives alive, and ASU has really struggled to get off the field. For all their success and their talent on defense, that's been an Achilles heel lately. That's what I think has perhaps made these games closer than perhaps ASU's wins could have been. On the flip side, their third down defense isn't great. Pretty middle of the pack. Right there, ASU is going to need to continue to move those chains. Maybe I'll talk about my second point here in a moment, but it is related. So I think ASU you absolutely have to be better on third downs if you want to get a big road win.
Funnily enough, not only is that a key for mine, but it's the first one I wrote down. Third downs. To elaborate and build upon that, Cincinnati, as we talked about earlier, they rank 14th nationally in third down offense, converting not too far from 50% of their attempts. ASU's tied for 94th nationally in third down defense, and quite frankly, I was expecting it to be worse than that when I was looking up the numbers.
For the last 2 weeks, yeah.
On the other hand, Cincinnati ranks 82nd nationally in third down defense, as you talked about, kind of right there in the middle, if not on the bottom area of the center chunk of college football. ASU ranks 47th in the nation in third down offense, so still not anything to write home about, but certainly better than their defense in that category. I think that's going to go such a long way because this is such a huge momentum game for both teams. These are 3-win teams from a year ago. ASU, of course, as we haven't talked about, or we've kind of alluded to, I think we know by now, a win gets ASU bowl eligibility. A win for Cincinnati gets them one game away from that sort of thing. And those, I'm sure, are huge checkpoints for both teams for this season because that was not expected really from either of them based on the preseason ranking. So you boil it down, I think the better team on third downs is going to be the one that wins a game here.
Yeah, and then so that the third down point leads right to my second point. You got to win time of possession, and I think that's tailor-made for what ASU wants to do, especially on the road, and for what they're going to want to do, just controlling the game and the tempo on the ground. And the more time you hold the ball is less time that an explosive Bearcat offense will hold the ball. It's pretty simple. So I think those first two keys for me really go hand in hand. I think that's going to be schematically and strategically what ASU is going to need to do on Saturday.
For me, ASU needs to cash in on red zone opportunities. Cincinnati is tied for 59th in 59th in the nation, of course, in red zone defense. ASU ranks 113th in red zone offense. We talked about Cincinnati only having allowed 2 rushing touchdowns per year from anywhere on the field. Now, obviously, with ASU's offense, you're going for rushing touchdowns whenever you have the ball. Scott's capable of doing that from just about any point in the field, but especially when you get closer to the end zone. Now, if you flip things around, Cincinnati is tied for 103rd nationally in red zone offense. ASU is 115th in red zone defense. So that, clash on the field when Cincinnati has the ball in the red zone, it's 2 teams that aren't doing particularly well in that scenario. So again, if Cincinnati is able to get some significant edges in the red zone, obviously in points in general, but what we talked about to compound it, ASU has issues at kicker. So if you get the ball, at the 20-23 yard line, and you've got to kick these near 40-yard field goals, things like that, those are frightening situations for Sun Devil kickers right now, and that may not result in positive outcomes. So again, if you're ASU, you got to get points when you get in the red zone, but you really got to get touchdowns. I'm looking for ASU to double that 2 rushing touchdown amount, this game alone.
My third and final point, kind of related to cashing in the red zone, is just overall better special teams play. We talked about the place kicking issues, whether it's going to be, being able to take a field goal opportunity, or maybe the coaching staff feels they need to maybe go for it on 4th down to keep the drive alive. But also, we saw really the first freshman game from punter Canyon Floyd. He did not have a good game against Utah. A lot of punts, sub 40 and in the low 30s. That's not going to get it done. He's a guy that we've seen is very capable, very good, and is able to kind of flip the field. You want to make any offense try to go down the field and drive on that good Sun Devil defense. With the playmakers on ASU's defense, chances are they're going to make a play at some point if you make these teams have to go 70, 60 yards at a pop. Overall, they just need to be good and tidy, and because I think that ultimately ASU has been kind of walking a razor's edge in terms of being able to get away with some of these special teams deficiencies, some of these special teams question marks. So ASU would like to see them take a big step forward and clean some of that stuff up on Saturday afternoon.
Third and final key for me, ASU has to take care of the ball. You cannot give possessions away. In the national rankings, there's a multi-team tie for 26th nationally in turnovers gained. ASU and Cincinnati are 2 of those teams. So they've got the same amount of turnovers that have been forced. You look at that from the Sun Devil perspective, been feeling pretty good about their ability to generate turnovers. That's been a thing that obviously is a significant improvement from last year. So if Cincinnati has the same amount that's been forced, then that means they're doing pretty good at that sort of thing as well. So again, in a game like this that's on the road against a team that has some momentum and is looking for more, it's just one of those games that, the last thing you can afford to have happen is a start like what happened at Texas Tech. Now, obviously, if that happens in any game, you're in bad shape, but you just can't let the crowd get into it and stay in it early. And a huge part of that is going to be how ASU takes care of the ball for all 4 quarters.
All right. I guess it's time for predictions, and I'll start things off. And I think it's going to be a real tough road environment for the Devils. You hear that, Nippert's going to be a loud stadium where the crowd's going to be a factor, and we've seen ASU positively feed off the crowd energy in those big wins, and I think you go back to the Texas Tech game, I think that was part of Sam Levitt's freshman game struggles. He did not look the same as he had prior to that, and I think overall, this is still a young team that's building for the future. Getting a big win on the road in a hostile atmosphere. Now, Texas State somewhat fits the bill. They were a smaller venue, definitely not at this scale, definitely not a conference game. ASU is going to have to lean hard on this run game on Saturday. And this is a defense we talked about can give up yards, but can they finish the drives? And can ASU's defense make enough key stops and key moments? And those key moments are often on 3rd downs to get the job done. Ultimately, though, I just think that ASU maybe is for as good a start as they had, and they've had a great first half of the season. I just think that perhaps they're not going to be able to keep up with the Bearcat offense on the road. I see it's still going to be a close game, and like every game in the Big 12, ultimately is a kind of a coin flip. But on the record, 27-21 Cincinnati.
So this game is really the perfect setup for that, I don't know if a trap game, but that letdown type of game, that hangover type of game. Between Cincinnati playing better than expected, it being a road game, coming after an emotional victory, you toss on that cherry on top of the 9 a.m. Arizona time kickoff and whatever factoring in that may do. However, all that said, this is a team that's just built to Warriors, and they are finding different ways to win, and more importantly, they're finding ways not to lose. I don't know if that sounds weird to say it in those two different ways, but like we've talked about time and time again, the ASU of the past would have let a multitude, several games this season slip away that have been W's for this 2024 squad. I think that this is going to be another game where they just take another step up the ladder and they do some things that you just typically haven't seen ASU do. And you see them have that resolve and you see them battle. You know, there are a lot of unknowns for this game, a lot of them. But I see ASU rising to the challenge. I see this being a game that ASU can kind of unite around itself and really, really battle toward a common goal, because this game represents a lot. You know, you get to that 6th win, you get to bowl eligibility, which many people, including Brad and me, didn't think you were going to get to this year at any point, let alone before Halloween. You dang sure get in the national rankings if you do that. I mean, there is quite a bit on the line that can be a little bit of an exhale moment for Sun Devil fans. Not to kick your feet up, but just an accomplishment that you can be proud of. This team just has a fight in it. I'm counting on them to get to a better start than they did against Texas Tech, and that was really the only thing there. If you get off to a not terrible start against Texas Tech, you're undefeated right now. I see this being just an absolute nail-biter, a nervous wreck for Sun Devil fans for all 60 minutes. But I see ASU surviving with a 28-27 win.
All right, so we'll see if the Devils can, in fact, get bowl eligible before Halloween. It would be quite the script flip, and see which Sun Devils are able to step up in the spotlight on Saturday. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils, Joe. I think I'd like to thank our guest, J.T. Smith of thefrontofficenews.com, as well as Sun Devil linebacker Jordan Crook and offensive lineman Kyle Scott. As we talked about, this game's kicking off 9 a.m. Arizona time, or if maybe a little bit extra time if you're heading back east in the Eastern time zone. High noon. Won't be on TV. It'll be streaming on ESPN Plus, which I still believe is more widely available than the Pac-12 network. Probably.
I got Hulu. I do Hulu for TV, and I've had that in some bundle deal for quite a while. So yeah, it's not its own. It doesn't have to be its own thing like the Pac-12 network. Where it was on two providers. It's a lot easier to get, and I think might do a sample or a trial deal. I don't know. Be creative, folks. Come on, we're innovators around here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's ways to stream your Devils on Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning. In the meantime, make sure you stay with us on the social media side of things. Follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, Instagram at Speak of the Devils, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and give me a follow on all things social at BDenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy42. Huge shout out, thank you to all our incredible sponsors. Also adding to the list from earlier in the show is, of course, the Spaghetti Shack, which you certainly know by now is not just owned and operated by Sun Devils, but by a former Sparky the Sun Devil. The Spaghetti Shack is a community-focused to-go pasta concept that started right here in Tempe, Arizona by 5 lifelong friends. They serve a menu starring spaghetti, meatballs, garlic bread, and a few other fan favorites. They make it their mission to provide quality, affordable food as quickly as possible so that you can spend less time cooking and spend more time with your loved ones. They offer a variety of Italian-American options for you to choose from, whether you want to pick your own one of their delicious options or build your own shack by choosing the amount of pasta, type of sauce, and protein. They have options for anybody and any family. They have 2 locations, one in Tempe at 6340 South Rural Road near the intersection of Rural and Guadalupe. That's open every day from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And for those up north, they have a Pine Top Lakeside location at 592 West White Mountain Boulevard, open daily from 11 to 8. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at The Spaghetti Shack and on Twitter at Spaghetti_Shack.
And once you're done supporting our amazing sponsors, make sure to drop us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. I just realized that a 6th win would mean you have to watch a certain major motion picture, right?
We're going to have to get like some live tweeting, live streaming, if that were to happen this week or at any point. I mean, it seems that it would be a shocking travesty if I'm not watching that film at some point in the next month or so. Yeah, we got to get Ralph. We got to get like some dual watching or, make it a party, maybe get some others involved, things like that. Because that's been a long time coming. And I know Ralph unearthed like a tweet from the show. Like I think we can find
2018 or something like
the
that.
episode where it emanates from. I didn't dial that one back up yet, but yeah, we can find that and potentially make it a full circle moment, maybe as soon as a matter of days from now.
Yeah, that somehow just occurred to me as we're signing off. Yeah, we will be back, of course, next week to really break down the game, find out if Joe's got to watch The Devil Wears Prada, but we'll also be taking a mid-season-ish roundtable deep dive discussion with a couple of marquee guests.